Frontline. The 2021-2026 cabinet officially wound up its term following the final cabinet meeting chaired by President Museveni at State House Entebbe.
We assumed office at a time of great uncertainty globally.
The Bavubi cabinet, as it became commonly known during its 5-year term, was rocked by the Karamojong Iron Sheets scandal, which implicated several ministers and led to arrests and convictions.
The Honorable Agnes Nandutu is hereby sentenced to imprisonment for 4 years.
Despite Alice's skepticism, the cabinet completed its full 5-year term with minimal reshuffles. Something uncommon in Uganda's recent political history. Only a few ministers exited government, largely due to corruption allegations linked to the Karamojong Iron Sheets scandal.
With government property, to wit 400 pre-painted iron sheets.
After the final cabinet meeting, President Museveni praised ministers for what he described as discipline and commitment in implementing the government's development agenda, crediting the term for contributing to Uganda's economic progress and political stability.
We have been mobilizing for the NRM. Therefore, the victory we are talking about of 71%.
Political analysts, however, say the outgoing cabinet leaves behind a mixed legacy.
I think we had what we could call, or they had what we could call the baptism of fire.
Many of them running up and down, trying to demonstrate they are doing stuff. If you ask me, is that how government should run? I am not sure that's what.
So people should not think that we are changing because we want to eat money, we want to do this. No.
Attention has now shifted to the composition of the next cabinet as lobbying intensifies among members of the ruling National Resistance Movement ahead of Museveni's new term in office. And the question now is, what will the next cabinet be called? The loggers or the dredgers? This is The Frontline. NBS Frontline.
Yes, welcome to the Frontline. I'm Simon Kagwanjala. Well, it's amazing to know that the Bavubi are out after Tamarita's 4-year tenure, characterized by acrimony, uncoordinated troop movements, a lot of public skepticism, scandal after scandal, and so much more. The big question remains, what will be their legacy? And what kind of foundation have they set for the next cabinet? Well, cabinet was dissolved early this week, must have been on Monday, where President Museveni hailed the ministers for their loyalty. At the initial stage, at the onset, the president came out in defense of his fishermen cabinet, arguing that he had taken a lot of time and effort in choosing what he believed would lead the country into the middle income status. Did they indeed perform? And where do we start from in drawing their scorecard? Joining me tonight is Prof. Roger Barikayomwe, a political analyst and lecturer, together with the Honorable Sarah Opendi. During the course of the show, we'll also be joined by Honorable Chris Bariomunsi, Honorable Lulume Baiga, and Honorable Fred Mukasa Mbide. Well, as we start the show, there are quite a number of highlights that defined the tenure of this outgoing regime. But the biggest feature in this cabinet was Right Honorable Robinah Nabbanja, the now former Prime Minister. Take a look at some of the moments.
Each other, we have had a number of meetings. Sometimes he doesn't attend. And I wanted to know who were the contractors. I wanted a report.
You want to work with the Prime Minister's office? Please do the best. Museveni, Akoya, Bantu, Amatangala, Akola, Abapi, to one using the powers I have as the Prime Minister. I have cancelled your contract.
Demolish their permanent structures. And in the same place, you put other people. How could, if it were your father? And I'm about to press the button for the message to say,
Oh, wow. So what is the legacy? We will start on that very note. And Honorable Sir Opendi, what a pleasure hosting you tonight. Woman MP Tororo, what will you remember this cabinet for?
First of all, this cabinet came at a time when we were just coming out of the COVID pandemic.
We were actually at the height of it.
2020, 2021?
Yeah, they came in at 2021.
Yes, 2021. So certainly we all remember what happened during the COVID period, that everybody was at home and there were a lot of lessons learned, including, for me, what I keep remembering at the beginning was His Excellency, the President of Uganda, trying to teach people how you can actually feed on the little that you have. You remember that portion on the plate where he came openly to demonstrate to Ugandans, you don't have to eat a mountain of food anyway. But most importantly, of course, when the cabinet was appointed, some people had a lot of doubts in the Right Honorable Prime Minister Nabbanja that she will not deliver, but I think she has done her best.
So she has disproved naysayers.
Yeah, she has done her best, and well, of course, you need.
Where do you draw the yardstick from?
I draw the yardstick from on the side, of course, where she has actually been tough, speaking openly about some wrong things, taking on contractors, as you have seen, being a hands-on person who was always in the field, unlike some other prime ministers we've had previously, who were mostly office-bound. She was out in the field, you know, always visiting different parts of the country, even where we've had challenges, calamities, you know, the landslides. She has been out there visiting.
Is that typical of a prime minister, moving all over the place like a headless
Well,
chicken?
people have different work methods. Well, you are assigned the office, and it is then up to you to see how to execute your duties.
The leader of government business.
Yeah, but the leader of government business sometimes wants to see what is in the field. And that's why she was out there moving.
So she was hands-on.
Yeah, she was a hands-on person. That one, we should credit her for that.
Prof. Rogers, where do we start from in drawing parameters on performance? Is it about the NDPs, the key targets, or the reality?
Of course, in this case, what is looked at is the reality. The best practice would be looking at how they adhere to the National Development Plan. But right now, and I credit President Museveni for managing the politics of Uganda, he knew that he needed a cabinet which would then look at more of mobilization. Because of the threat he was at as a leader, he previously, you saw with the pressure from Dr. Kizza Besigye, the technocrats, the former, let's say, prime ministers like Prime Minister Mbabazi and Hakana Rugunda, who were gentlemen and more experienced, could not, and of course, who also were more interested in protecting their legacy and that of the country, could not have performed this kind of what would call what Nabbanja, Prime Minister Honorable Nabbanja has earned MBA, management by being around. For her, yeah, she has been managing by being around. Not necessarily that the impact is there, but she would go at every scene and show her presence. And of course, her nature was to counter opposition, and especially Bobi Wine and the NUP kind of pressure, because you see President Museveni had read into the regime that it would be pressure from the locals, pressure from the ghettos, pressure from the common people. And it was not the elite. These other prime ministers had a level of elitism, and Prime Minister Nabbanja was a person who was going to go on the ground, tell every lie on behalf of the president. Also, if you look at her tone, she doesn't show that she does anything as a prime minister. Actually, if you look at the tone of all these Bavubi cabinet, it is not about we've done this, or the system, the government is doing this. Everyone, including on a barrio, including on a feeder road, she will say, President Museveni is saying this. He has said, even if the president didn't communicate to her on any action, everything is about President Museveni. So she has acted very well in personalizing, of course, the president, and in any case, stabilizing the governance. But
how do we draw a line between loyalty and competence?
Definitely, on the competence level, she scores low.
No, she's not alone. It's been an entire cabinet.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying if we went to move by competency and delivery, and also for the planning for the future, then this cabinet has scored really low, because their focus was more on the political mobilization. And in any case, and we will see this with time and with the ministers who will follow in their dockets, but most likely we are going to see failures. Institutional failures are continuing, because it is not about systems coming in place. I will give you an example for one case, one of the most royal maybe who would be, because for him even didn't need to be voted in, and I will talk about the Minister of Transport, Honorable Katumba Wamala. But he even failed to implement a simple traffic lights regulation, because he knew he also now had to adhere to the politics. It's not, and yet we know his personality competence when we saw him in police and in managing the army. But this time, on transport, I think you saw the airlines and then the roads. He failed because he could not then implement what is on book. He had to please the political players.
Well, thank you. Honorable Sarah Opendi, at the onset, the president christened this cabinet as fishermen and women. Did they indeed live to the name as typical fishermen, doing things crudely and vaguely and erratically?
Yeah, but what is a fisherman? What is a fisherman? Let's first understand. When Jesus said, I will make you fishers of men, I think the fishermen have delivered to the best of their ability. And why I must say that is that, of course, the role of the executive is actually to implement government programs, to implement the laws that we pass. And in as far as that is concerned, you must also know that you cannot implement certain things without resources. He was blaming General Katumba for not implementing the traffic and road safety fines. But you can't blame him, because this is a decision, much as the law is there, and it is his docket to actually implement the law as it is. This must be done after bringing cabinet on board, and cabinet okayed, of course, the fines, which I think are in the regulations. And following that, you also the outcry. Maybe what I can blame the executive for is always trying to move back on certain things.
Because of politics?
Yeah, sometimes things are political, and that's why we have failed to have order in this city. Look at what is happening today. Just that rain has caused the traffic jam. Up to now, there is traffic jam for those moving out of Kampala. So if Cabinet has approved something, for as long as it has been discussed and, you know, elaborately amongst all the stakeholders, proceed and implement.
You've once been a minister.
Just hold on. I just want to say that because it's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. Because these road fines had actually brought some order. In this country, we have people who are so indisciplined on our roads. And because of the indiscipline, you can see that we lose close to 17 people minimum on our roads every day. And those are the cases that are reported. In the countryside, especially those in the villages, we don't know how many die on the roads. So the indiscipline on our roads actually required this express penalty scheme to actually have been enforced without fear or favor. People had started driving careful on the roads. And when that was suspended, just look at, I don't know how many people died. Last month, we had road accidents almost on all the major roads towards Jinja, between Jinja and Iganga, between Iganga and Tororo. We buried even one of my cousins' wife, one of the wife to my cousins, an officer in Bugiri district local government. She died alongside others. So people are dying on the roads because of indiscipline. So how I wish that the Ministry of Works can proceed to implement the express penalty
So
scheme.
the cabinet has bent more to politics?
Yes.
To politicking
Now,
over being tough?
Yes, yeah, they bend back. When they hear, you know, an outcry, then they withdraw. This trade order within the city, it's one thing. Well, I don't know, because I didn't know, I only saw it happening. I don't know whether they gave people time to actually vacate. But look at what is happening. Well, look at the border industry within the city.
Well, what was remarkable, again, during this tenure were the clashes between the Prime Minister and several of her ministers that made it to the public realm. How regrettable is this? You've been in the works of cabinet. At what level does it really explode to that level, to that extent?
Can you remind me which ones? Because
there was a time when Nabbanja clashed with Hiraronek. There was another time when Nabbanja clashed with Opendi, with Honorable Lumumba, and several other instances.
Well, those are personality issues because I have served in cabinet and I don't quite recall. You may have disagreements with a colleague, but I don't move out with them. I don't move out. Those are personality issues, and I don't think I would be comfortable.
Infighting, the infighting.
Yes, the infighting will always be there and has always been there. But how you handle that infighting, it's individuals, how they actually respond to some of those challenges. I don't think I would be comfortable discussing that matter.
Well, Prof, when you look at the acrimony, the bad blood that has been running within cabinet, does it speak to anything?
Yeah, of course, one is when Prime Minister Nabbanja was brought to be the Prime Minister, she was not a cabinet minister. She was, I think, a Minister of State.
Yes.
And
handed over to her.
So there were more senior people, including her, and very even historical people. One of the people she crashed with was General Tafide. Another was even Minister Nankabirwa. So when they crashed on the UADCL, I think. So some of these people even know, not that one, they are more professional, they thought they were more professional than her. They thought they were more senior than her. Then they thought she's just a Kada person who does not bring so much of the technocrat kind of professional ingredient to cabinet. So many of them, of the ministers, despised her. And that's why I give her a bit of credit, because she managed to drive the ship up to the end. But there was that kind of people despising, and because of her background, she was a former RDC. And of course, that's where President Museveni saw her niche, her strength as a mobilizer. So that created bad blood, because many people didn't believe in her leadership role. And the credit I give is that she ignored all that and went on the ground. But largely, you see that Prime Minister Nabbanja did not play her role as the leader of government business, because the real Prime Minister would be the leader of government business, and her role is not supposed to be in the marketplace. She's supposed to control and the cabinet, the ministers, and let them be maybe the foot soldiers. But instead, we saw on many occasions, including in Kampala floods, like Honorable was talking about, she would be on the front line, and many times she didn't have technical advice. She was just like a political player. Just the only credit would give her was that she knows the street language, but she was not technocrat at all, and she did not have, because this is, if you're lead of government position, then you should be a bureaucrat, and you should look at presentation of government beyond internationally. She performed poorly on that, because, like I've told you, she just she knows the street language, credit to her, but she was weak in coordinating her troops.
To what extent did this cabinet redefine politics?
It has taken us, this cabinet has taken Uganda several steps behind. Because previously, if you see President Museveni's cabinet of 1986, it had technocrats, people actually, like you saw Professor Masaba, who was in agriculture, people were deployed in places where they had strength, and they were not necessarily political cadres. And then even the society had a value system, and it helped, because somehow there was a culture that if you see President Museveni appoint a minister, then he's a credible person just by being appointed by Prime Minister, by being a minister. However, with this notion, he has tainted his legacy, because right now people don't value that position of the ministerial position, because they've...
So was it downgraded?
Yeah,
why?
It has been downgraded because of course, the interest of just promoting the personal regime agenda instead of promoting the national good. So a minister would be in position. That's why the Constitution empowers. It puts actually everything in the hands of a minister, not even the president. Our Constitution, the president should consult a minister. However, it's as if all these ministers got all the power and returned it to the presidency without even, because a minister is given some ground, and a minister at one level can challenge the presidency. But basically, you ask me the question and I'll tell you, they've downgraded from independence. We've never, not including even President Amin's cabinet, we've never had such kind of a cabinet, and it was, I think, intentional how President called it a fisherman cabinet, which brings a lot of shame to us as a society and a country, because then we agree that we don't need to use our best, because if you see this country, it has many people who have experience and they are technocrats and they know what they experience in their areas, but then we've chosen to use just mobilizers just for having just a message of a regime, NRM basically interests, otherwise having and ignoring the interests of the country. So the public good has been ignored and selfish interests.
Well, Honorable Lulume, a member of Parliament, Buikwe South, joins us now. Pleasure having you and a very good evening. Where do we start from in examining the legacy of the former cabinet that was dissolved early this week?
The legacy of the former cabinet was even dissolved. I thought it hadn't, because when we were debating this protection of sovereignty bill, the Prime Minister spoke as a Prime Minister to her group. Where was she deriving her prime ministerial authority? Anyhow, the President called it Cabinet of Fishermen, and we thought that it was derogative. We thought he wanted to downplay their capacity from the beginning, but I reminded the members of Parliament, who were my colleagues, that me, who is coming from fishing communities, we wouldn't like to say that the President wanted to call it a cabinet of mediocres, because indeed the fishermen are very brilliant people. They know how to time without using scientific compasses, and they know where they would go.
Well, that was metaphorical.
So it was metaphorical in the biblical sense. That is what I think, because the President wanted a cabinet of political mobilizers. And the kind of work that Prime Minister Nabbanja would do in terms of mobilization is way ahead of what the Super Minister, Amama Mbabazi, would do. Whereas, because these are the two people I can compare. I've seen them be performing as prime ministers, and there are things which Amama Mbabazi wouldn't do, which Nabbanja would do. And that is exactly the feat that the President referred to, metaphorically, as a mobilizer, fishers of men. These were fishers of men. And I think to...
So you give it to them on political mobilization?
Yes, the appointing authority, that's the kind of cabinet that he wished. And I want to agree with my brother. There is no power in the ministry. The current setup is such that everything is handled by the President. He's omnipotent and omnipresent in terms of his government. And I think this has been calculated over time. Because I remember when Honorable Amama Mbabazi, Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi, wiseced and went to inaugurate a dam, I think it was Isimba or something, without the authorization of the President. The President backed at him and asked him where he got the authority to go and inaugurate a project. Is it his project? We overheard these things happening, and never again did any other minister inaugurate such projects of capital nature, apart from when the President does it. That is why we were making observation that the President would do everything when he's invited, including when you are baptizing your own child. Simon Kagwanjala, he would be in position to come because he was doing the fishing of men himself. Now he had to get a cabinet that can fish the men. And I think his metaphorical nomenclature...
How much did this cabinet reflect of the president's vision, because he was looking at this cabinet for middle income status as a vision and the pursuance of PDM.
That was his vision. That was his vision.
At the onset, yes.
And whether or not he shared it with them and what they were supposed to do in order to achieve it is something else. Because the Prime Minister is supposed to oversee all other ministries. But what power does the Prime Minister have over the ministries? And what do the ministries have in their dockets? For me, the first engagement I had with the Prime Minister was when we joined the 11th Parliament. And we went as a delegation from Boikwe because we wanted power, electricity, because it is generated from our ends, and it was not, it was passing our heads without people getting power. And he made a direction. I direct Honorable Ruth Nankabirwa. The first priority should be given to the people of Boikwe because this is where the power comes from. Oh, we clapped and said, this woman is powerful. Nothing happened throughout the term of office. And then another time the Prime Minister came and said, because I was quarreling about how people were cutting away our forest land and grabbing the land which hosts the forests, the renowned forests that we have kept over time. She came and made an enunciation in Parliament. The President has directed that those who have been cutting down the forest, the natural forests from the forest reserves, must stop immediately and the permits withdrawn from them. I said, I think government is doing something. They stopped for only 2 weeks and then they repeated it. So I had to question again whether her directive holds any weight and said, this was a presidential directive and they must abide. I said they are not abiding. May I give you a lift so that we can go and see these forests? They have cleared all the forests now, and her enunciation and the display of power of speech could not work at all. I can mention very many things, including the report on schools. Then on answering Prime Minister's question, she would just answer because it had become a ritual. In the civilized world, okay, in Britain, in the UK, when we talk about a Prime Minister's question time, it is real. Technocrats are listening and they are taking notes and are willing to go the extra mile to implement the directive of the Prime Minister, asking for a supplementary budget if it is necessary.
Do you find it fair
to
look at Nabbanja as the epitome of cabinet?
Oh yes, she's the Prime Minister, supervisor of all ministries, who must see to it that all ministries perform, including generating consensus on the ability to find funds to fund certain projects which needed fixing. For me, that is the Prime Minister I wanted to believe in, and that is, in essence, why we have one, and we have even prepared question time for the Prime Minister, who should be understanding things. But it was a ritual. I got used to the ritual. And if at all you wanted justice to speak in Parliament, to be seen to be speaking, you could go into question time and ask a question, but whether or not it will be, okay, it would be answered certainly, but whether or not a problem would be fixed, that's another thing, and couldn't happen.
What would be your marking scheme? What would be the key features in your marking scheme upon which you would score the ministers? The parameters.
First of all, whether, because that's a wider subject, because it will depend on an audit of what we have sent money to do and what money has done. And we can gauge on the kind of projects that have been undertaken in health, in schools, and in infrastructure. We shall gauge the utilization of the road, of the 1 billion shillings which Parliament directed that be used. And some of those projects, yes, we can see, but that would be government-wide discussion.
Well, thank you. Honorable Dr. Chris Bariomusi, formerly a fisherman, right? A former minister of ICT. Until the other day, you were a minister. Now, a free person. How was it living as a fisherman for 5 years?
Well, thank you very much, Simon. Good evening, fellow panelists, and good evening, viewers. I must apologize to the viewers that I am late because I am coming from Karamoja.
Still doing state duties?
I was officiating at a function where we're opening the UBC radio station.
As who now?
As a minister in charge.
You were dissolved?
Just hold on. Minister in charge of ICT and national guidance. Let me first clarify that ministers are still in office. I have been following the program from the beginning, so I haven't lost much because I was following. Yes, the president organized a luncheon for the ministers. Technically speaking, cabinet ends on the 11th of May, but the president has guided that the ministers will remain in office until when they hand over to the new ministers, and is going to issue an instrument to that effect. So it's so true that I am a former minister. I am a substantive minister for ICT and national guidance until when I hand over to the new minister, in case they bring a new one, or if I remain. So the ministers are in office. So those who did services from ministers should continue. The ministers will be in office until when the new ministers are appointed and take. Well, it's up to the president.
It's the president, which I can use to guide the minister in charge of guidance. You remember when the late Professor Nsibambi thought that they could be minister after President Museveni issuing an instrument, we challenged it. We said if at all Museveni had not succeeded as an elected president, then how could he make a cabinet that transcends a term?
So they removed
we challenged it successfully. And
where?
It was challenged successfully.
Where?
In Parliament. And he dropped the idea, and that is where the former Prime Minister Nsibambi ended his tenure. So it is likely to be challenged.
Honorable Opendi, you want to come in?
I just want to say something. I think that is the contradiction that must be resolved. We need to find a way of solving that legally in one of our pieces of legislation. Because I recall that in 2021, serving as a minister, after the elections, I think we had our last cabinet meeting in April. I don't remember which date. And I remember there was a meeting in Arusha where the ministers were required to go. And the then guidance we got from the Attorney General was that we needed to seek for authority from the president if he can issue executive powers to us to go and attend that meeting. So I think the president was given gave a go ahead to the minister, and my colleague traveled for the meeting in Arusha. So that contradiction in some countries, once elections are done and concluded.
You're talking about a new government?
No. For example, in Kenya, cabinet parliament are dissolved before the elections. In some other, countries, they actually immediately after elections you cease when the elections are concluded. But for us here now, there is a contradiction because you could hear even when we were handling the sovereignty bill, some members were challenging the executive and asking, I think, the Honorable Semuju.
At the moment, there is no technical problem.
Yeah, it is.
Because the new government.
You see, there is this contradiction. So all I'm saying is that this contradiction needs to be resolved so that we have it clearly stated in the law as to when.
Actually, that is why the presidential transition bill, which I had authored, was trying to cure. The Dr. Bariomusi.
So there is that
Dr. Bariomusi, I'll give you ample time for response.
Yes.
When you return. I need to look up the clause where in the Constitution where and how Parliament should, rather Cabinet, should be dissolved?
Yeah. It's a lacuna which needs to be solved.
The transitional provisions are not there.
Let's take a very short break, and when we return, Honorable Mario Musi, one of the fishermen, will be doing a self-appraisal. Has Cabinet lived up to the public expectation? Or it's been more of loyalty over